Okay, so I think you'll all agree that that was an absolutely fantastic panel session that we just had there moments ago. There was some very interesting discussion that we had around online and the digital bridge, which many of you will be in this kind of space right now, and it's a very interesting hybrid era that we're in. And the purpose of this next discussion that we're going to have is going to be looking at some questions around the question whether is the moving to the digital an inferior type of game. We had a similar discussion around that earlier in relation to one of the questions that the panel had spoken about. So some of the tensions that we had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these questions into the chat. And if we could just have a general discussion around them to hear what your thoughts are in relation to why is online bridge regarded as inferior and by whom? Is online bridge real bridge? So we had that kind of question in the poll, but it'll be interesting to hear your insights on that the discussion here. And then thinking question 2, how can online bridge be improved? Thirdly, can we have bridge without cards? What is the difference between holding cards and touching a keypad screen? I'm very intrigued by your thoughts on that. Fourthly, are thinking process or concentration different when playing with physical cards compared with a screen? And then finally, does the future of bridge lie online and or in digital formats? What are the implications of this? Okay, so I'll post the questions into the chat now, and the way that we'll organize this is that if you do have a question, please can you raise your hand or an answer to the question, and then if someone is speaking and you don't get a chance to have a discussion on that, please can you leave your response in the chat. Okay, so I'm just going to take down, stop presenting. Okay, so in relation to the first question, can we have a discussion on why online bridge might be seen as inferior to face-to-face bridge? And I'm going to just start with Clifford Tracy Bohr. Can you start us off? I see you have your hand raised.
Yes. So I mentioned in the chat, I actually found BBO and taught myself bridge, and my husband taught me bridge before I ever found the ACBL in America. And back then, 15 years ago, I was actually penalized because of finding online bridge. So like in the ACBL, when you're a baby player, you get to play in baby events, but because I got little tiny master points online, they used it against me. Does that make sense? So online points 15 years ago did not count towards rank advancements. So, but they also used them. So I couldn't use it for a rank advancement, but they also would not allow me to play in any of the baby events. It was this bizarre, they used it against me, but wouldn't let me use it to a rank advancement. It was very strange. But I would go to the bridge clubs and people would tell me, I would ask people to practice with me online, and people didn't want to do it. And as most of us know, when we move to online bridge, a lot of people, I think, have a fear of the unknown, that have been playing cards in card rooms and at bridge clubs for a long period of time. So they just didn't feel like it was real. And I think some of those people felt scared of the technology. They would misclick, they would do things like that. So I think they felt inferior more because they weren't sure with the platform. And it takes a while to get used to that platform, right? There's a different feel. And part of playing the game is that muscle memory. So like when you're playing the cards and things, you've got to get used to playing the online. But I mentioned in the chat, I don't know if anybody saw that, I saw myself improve much quicker online, because if you take the time and analyze all of the cards you play online, you can improve yourself much quicker, much faster. And it was one of the things that I would love to see. I love playing with cards. I love going to major tournaments and meeting all of the international people and playing against the best competition. And I miss that social aspect. but I would love to see us figure out a way to have card by card analysis afterwards, both for cheating in the live game, because now we can run it through the algorithms, and learning through your partnerships and learning quicker and other things. So just some of my thoughts on the live and the real. But I think a lot of people's fear over it was definitely, I think, many people's own insecurities. But the cheating, and this is a thing, that was the other thing in ACBL. So I've been on those ACBL speedballs for 15 years. And I actually, in early April, contacted the ACBL because there was a massive shift in cheating. And I could see it. You could see it in the analysis and all of that. So, I mean, I could feel it, because the long-term people that have been on BBO for a long time knew that they could detect us cheating, but all of the newer players coming in didn't know that. So you could tell they were cheating. So it was really strange. Okay, thank you.
Well, no, thank you so much. That's fascinating to hear your discussion, and it's very interesting as well to see how the kind of the emergence of the online from where you mentioned previously a few years ago to moving towards now. And I guess my interest, I'm going to move because we do have a question, but I guess my interest in your response there is in terms of, are we now moving towards a technology that's capable to be more superior, or maybe not superior, but better than what we've had previously in the past. So are we now transcending this notion of bridge, that's online bridge is inferior?
I mean, I think that was the interesting thing about, is it Christine or Christina, when she mentioned that the online players are advancing quicker. I saw that with myself by playing online. I was advancing much quicker than my peers that were playing online, that learned at the same time.
That's very intriguing. And that'll be interesting on day 4 when we have the learning and education session. I've noticed, Anne, you have your hand up. Would you like to respond to the first question or to Clifford's response?
Yes, I was interested in that discussion too, and certainly it's a wonderful opportunity for the newer players to be able to go through the hands, how they bid them exactly card by card, how they were played, which you can do ad infinitum after you've had an event, and you can go through and replay it again. I taught a lot of beginners, and at the end of the COVID lockdown, they came to Bridge for our supervised sessions, and they'd never handled cards. Some of them hadn't played cards in their early years, and so they had to learn how to handle cards, and it was really interesting. But they've managed to do that, so they've come into the face-to-face now, and they're certainly embracing it. But I still have tournaments for newer players, and then at the end of the tournaments we have a Zoom where we go through hands, the interesting hands, with all the people who want to discuss them and see how people played them differently, how they were bid differently, and how they were played differently. And I find that it's a great learning experience that's available for online.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Anne. That's fascinating to hear. And I think I'm going to just quickly touch on the third question there, Anne, because you mentioned in terms of like the physical holding of cards, and I'm just intrigued. Do you think, and this is open to everyone else too. I know we have a couple of more questions in the chat, but do you think there is a difference between holding the cards and being online in terms of how you experience bridge as a game, and what are these differences?
I think that you still have to go through all the how do you bid, how you see your own cards, and planning your play. We've been using BBO, and it's fascinating when you're dummy to be able to see your partner's hand, which you couldn't see previously. And so that I think that that's worked really well. And I don't see there is a big difference between, once you get used to holding the cards and playing online, they do different things, and they can cohabit very effectively, I think.
Okay. Oh, well, that's interesting. So you almost see it as they can complement one another, which is very interesting. No, thank you so much, Patrick. I believe your hand was up next, and then I'll come to Sue.
Hi, I'm come from Thailand. The thing with card is it's a little bit of not really legal in Thailand, and it caused a lot of problem for bridge players. If anyone recall, there was a thing in 2017 where bridge player was arrested in Thailand.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that online can really help, and especially if you want to teach bridge in school. In Thailand, it's illegal to bring card in school. So face-to-face bridge in school is technically impossible. It's illegal, and the teacher could be arrested, and there could be some serious jail time as well. So,
Thank you so
however, in Thailand there was another issue, which is, well, most of us over here cannot really afford to play online bridge. They're not as accessible for electricity or internet connection. Right. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Patrick. Yes, the internet connection was fading at some points, but no, very interesting, and an interesting case study that you present there about Thailand, and that's, I guess, what we're trying to do at this conference is to hear the international experiences and perceptions across bridge around the world. So absolutely, we're very interested and intrigued to hear to your perspectives on that. And I'm just going now to Sue, and I'm just seeing your comment in the chat as not to describe it as inferior. So what would be the alternative then, Sue, if we weren't to use that word, because the connotations of that are
I just typed that in because Samantha had put on the question, but I was actually going to discuss more about the difference between holding cards and just touching a screen, because we've also been teaching students, and they're going to have to get used to arranging their cards, which is done for you on screen, and also the etiquette of playing the actual cards out, which is very different because it's all taken care of on screen. And we're just getting into thinking now, when we go back to face about actually holding the cards and teaching them all those things as well. The concentration, a lot of, going on to question 4, the concentration, a lot of our players don't like playing nearly as many boards. They're quite happy to play 24 or 27 boards in face-to-face bridge. We get 20, 24, people start complaining. So they like the 16 or 20 board rounds in online bridge. So I don't think people like concentrating on the screen for as long as they will do at the club, when they can get up and walk around. And I don't know, you can get up and walk around at home, but it's on the screen, they don't like it. And I think the future of bridge is in a mixed format, and we're going to have to work out how to do it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, carry on. Sorry.
No, I said thank you. I'll pass it to somebody else.
Thank you so much, Sue, and thank you for touching upon question 4 as well in relation to concentration. So I guess maybe you see that as a barrier in relation to online bridge, in terms of how we can use the digital format in a way, in its ways that that there are going to be some challenges in terms of trying to identify some of the advantages and disadvantages of using online versions. But do you think, I mean, I guess just a follow-up question to you, Sue, and I'll come back to this, maybe you can put it in the chat, is do you think it would be, in terms of trying to incentivize a new generation of players, do you think that online bridge will be the catalyst for widening the popularity of bridge. So I'll let you, if you want to leave a comment in the chat to that question, Sue, that would be much appreciated. But I've noticed that, Anne, you have your hand raised, and I'm just going to come to you next.
I know I didn't have my hand raised then, but I was just thinking about it was when people come face to face after learning online, they almost had to learn all those new skills that they would have learnt had they been learning bridge on face to face in the beginning. So yes, they certainly had to learn new things.
Oh, no, thank you, Anne. Sorry, I've just noticed, I think, Anne and Sue, you have both your hands still raised, but I think you have to go back to where you.
Yes, done it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to, I'll move on to the third question then, or sorry, the second question I'll move on to, in fact, because we've discussed some of the third. So in terms of how it can be improved, now I've noticed that Clifford, Tracy Bohr, you've mentioned in relation to cheating. Now, we can have a slight discussion on this. I know with this afternoon session for UK time, we're going to be discussing cheating in a lot more depth. So we can have a discussion, but is there anything in relation to particularly online bridge that you think needs to be?
Yeah, I know in talking with a lot of my friends here in the US, and there's talk that some clubs want to do a true hybrid where they have some people playing in the club and some people playing online, and a lot of people are against that. They'd rather either have live play and then a separate game that is being held online, because that's the thing is, and we all know this, and I know Nicholas Hammond. So the online players, there's 3 to 5% in ACBL that are cheating. And many of them are the lower level players at this point. Most of the higher level players now know they can get caught, so they've stopped. But the lower level players still don't know. And I mean, he has, I think there's like 600 pairs or something in the ACBL. It'll take the ACBL forever at the speed they're going to get all of those players out of our online game. So I think there's a lot of people that have problems with mixing the two because you can't trust what's happening on the online. So until we figure out how to do that, or we just trust the algorithms that are being run through, and once you're caught by the algorithm, then you are on probation on the online game, right? Until we can figure out. There has to be some way that those people all get put on probation until they can prove their innocence almost, if the algorithms are catching them, or we're not going to be able to trust that online. Does that make sense? Until we solve that, that's going to be a problem. So.
And do you think then, because it's a very kind of that lies at the essence of the problem I'm thinking around the move to digital bridge.
And as somebody who's been an online player my whole career, and I started that way, and I've been trying to preach this for 15 years here in the US about the benefits of online play. But I do say every time I play online, I don't care about what my overall results are. I mean, it's fun if I win something, but it doesn't matter because I know that there's a percentage of the people that might not be ethical. I know I'm ethical. I know my partner's ethical, but I don't know everybody else. So all I worry about online play is my practice with my partner. I can't control the people around me, but I can control myself. So I use it as that format, and I've always used it as that format. Does that make sense? And until we really make sure that people aren't cheating, right? So that's where the respect.
And do you, because there's been incidents of cheating in both face-to-face and online, but just online has different kinds of cheating that we're starting to see that are differentiated from face-to-face. And so because cheating is, it's such a gray area in all sports, do you think people are holding out to wait until we get back to face-to-face so that we can remove the kind of online bridge? Or do you think that online bridge now has an equal place in relation to face-to-face, that it should be viewed as equally just as accessible and just as important? And therefore we just need to catch up with the processes and procedures for online bridge to ensure that it has the same integrity as face-to-face bridge.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see us figure out to have that same integrity, but as I've said, I've used it for, you know, the last 15 years to really just work on my own play to then use in face-to-face. But I've also watched in major tournaments people cheating. I mean, that's the thing, is the people that walk the room. And here in ACBL, the directors don't do much about those people that are walking the room. And there's a very famous player here who I will not name, but I screwed him in a tournament one time because he always gets East-West, and I was the pair right before him. And I asked every single player to make sure that they had their cards down, that the next player coming, you know, either scorecards, all of that, to hide them away. And he's a much better player than me. And I was also playing with a client at the time, and not a very good one. And I scored better than him in that particular tournament, because he didn't get any extra information in that tournament. Okay. You know, because that's the thing, is there's a lot of players in the live game that are looking at people's scorecards, are doing that. Yeah. I mean, I watched somebody else who's also another big time player stretches 2 tables ahead of him and watches the north or south hand, and he's moving East-West. And the directors don't see any of this, but I work with a lot of non-English speaking people, and I have to watch body language in my job a lot. So I'm very aware of it. And, you know, and that's the other thing, is in live game, because I'm so aware of body language, I'm probably picking up people's cues myself, right? I mean, that's something that it's interesting. When we started doing the real bridge and all of that, you start to see people's mannerisms again. Like, I really loved the USBF when the screens came down. I thought that was the best. That's the most pure. That is pure bridge. When you're using real bridge and you can be social at times, but you then have the screen coming down. I really felt that was very, very good platform, personally.